Creative Space today, I have Chelsea McMaster. And I met her when she invited me to do a talk at an open studio series that she's running. But she's also an accomplished ceramist, a potter. So I want to talk to her about her work as well. Thanks for joining me today, Chelsea.
Thank you for having me. Mhm.
Now, I love your work. I like the braiding, especially, and the story, the narrative behind it. Can you tell us a little bit about your work?
Okay, yeah, so my work is rooted in kind of like a cultural archiving. So I try to take symbols and different traditions in pottery and mesh them together. I like to say that the language that my work uses is hair because braiding and plaiting hair is some of the earliest actual like physical craft making that I did as a child. And it's also a very communal thing that I would do with my friends. And my mother would do with me and my sisters every week. And so I wanted to start there. I think that the braid is a strong symbol for different Black cultures across the diaspora. So that is one of the main um, motifs that you find in my work. But I also focus a lot on women and their contribution to um, kind of collecting our traditions and passing them down to the different generations, whether that is with the craft or the tradition of pottery that you find in Antigua and the rest of the Caribbean, or even with everyday things like your grandmother recipes or your the stories that they know and how they can recall whose family member is this and who came from where. Like all of I'm trying to um figure out a way to visually represent all of the really powerful things that women do um, throughout Black culture.
So when you talk about braiding, I think about how it's also a language that was handed down, that traveled with us over during the
Mhm.
transatlantic trade, and that we also, when I say it's a language, it wasn't just decorative for a big portion of that part of our
Mhm.
life. It was also, it had messages encoded into the braiding styles and so on, just as we did with the head ties. And this was handed
Mhm.
down by the women. And you mentioned pottery as well in terms of the handing down in Antigua, because
Mhm.
one thing that I've always found fascinating with my family's own relationship with pottery, starting with Mama, my grandmother, and going back to her ancestors, coming down to my Aunt Hyacinth, is that it's all female. Like the men will, as they say, the men will go and get the money, but the women make the
Mhm.
pots. And I always found that fascinating. Like, why didn't the men learn to make the pots as well? It was just all, it was a cottage industry that's become art now, but it was craft and but it was all through the female line. I always found that interesting. What do you make of that?
I feel a strong connection to it. I think it's um like through my research, I found that like it of course like it has its roots in West Africa and it's when it comes down to it, it's just another thing that women have like worked and strived to keep alive. Um, and so it's one of my favorite things about this like pottery tradition and throughout the Caribbean because I think in the same way that um it kind of has this sacred, very like raw um emotion and lineage to it. I think it that is something that really only truly shines when it's something that women are kind of in charge of.
And um, in a way, you are keeping that tradition alive because you're back. Well, you are. you have connections to Antigua. You went to school here, or you spent some time here at Abbott. You worked here at APUA for a while. Your family's from here. Explain your ties to the island, just to solidify that connection.
Well, for most of my whole childhood was in Antigua. Um, most, if not all of, well, yeah, most of my family is here, on both sides. Um,
But you're based in the US.
I Yes, right now I'm based in the US. I just finished school up there, and one of the things that I studied ceramics in graduate school, but a lot of the research that I was doing was really focused on trying to figure out how I can connect myself to the pottery traditions in Antigua, but also figure out how I could document and have a record, because with like when it comes to my work, what I really wanted to do was to figure out where my place was in ceramics, like how does it connect back to me, and finding that tradition in Antigua and knowing that, oh, I'm really going to be doing this as a career. Like that was one of the things that really drew me to it and made me feel like it was mine, or that I had a right to know, which is one of the reasons why I had to come back here, to learn from them, because I I mean I am Antiguan,
Yeah.
and I think that it was, I feel like it was robbed of me, like the fact that I didn't know about it until I went away and I heard about it when I
Really?
couldn't directly access it. I had no idea.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I
Okay. That's
yeah.
interesting.
So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
and I know that I left Antigua when I was like 19, 20, and I don't know how it never came into focus for me, because like my family's from Glanville, but I grew up on Jonaswood. So I'm right next to Seaview Farm, but I had no idea. I had no
Well, to
idea
me,
that it was
yeah.
going on.
To me, that speaks to one of our problems here. I mean, yes, you
Mhm.
could blame the individual for not seeing the thing that's right across the road, but we don't really proactively, as much as we should, um, research, document, and share the
Mhm.
things that make us us, especially in arts. Which is why I was going to say I find it really interesting that you are continuing the memory making through your work that you're doing here. So I want you to tell us about that.
Mhm.
You're doing, would that be stories, I believe, where you're collecting stories from older Antiguans. You're doing
Mhm.
the Artist Talk series, which is allowing artists to share their work and their methodology. And of course, you're also feeding yourself by connecting with the potters here. So
Mhm.
tell us about all of that and also how you're funding it, because I believe you're also a Fulbright fellow.
Yes. So I was awarded a Fulbright grant to do creative research in Antigua. And I also received the supplemental grant from National Geographic to host pottery workshops. And so for the workshops, I will be focusing on working with art teachers and public school, high school students. So to try to figure out a way to be able to get some of the traditional Antiguan pottery making practices into the school curriculum. So as I'm learning from the potters, I'm taking that information, seeing how I can kind of mold it to be able to fit into the schools, to be something that students would be able to do more actively for CXC. Right now, there are a few schools that do it, but there are not a lot of not all of the art teachers have that knowledge. So I'm working to be able to do that. And while I'm here, I wanted to kind of make use of the time that I'm here. So I the grant is for 10 months, and one of the things that I also um know that needs to be done is to go and talk to the people who have lived here, because the I know that there's a big chunk of Antigua's history that there is just not a lot of information out there about. And the people who live here just have all of that in them, just waiting. And if you ask them a question, they will talk. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do. So the name of the project is Wadadli Folk. And so those are the so it'll be me learning, preparing for the workshops, recording oral histories, and then the artist talk is kind of a side project that I'm working on. But one of the what I wanted to do, especially because so my grandfather, my great grandfather, he lived to be 105, and I I think by the time I was ready to start asking him about his life, he died. Like he was gone. And so I like this oral history project is stemming from some of the regret that I have from not being able to talk to him. I mean, he was a quiet man, didn't really talk very much, but I feel that like if I was of that mindset at the time when I would go by the house and sit with him and he would make me watch cricket with him, if I had that the want to find out about his life, I could have. And so because I missed that chance, I want to take the time I have now to do what I can to talk to the people that are left behind. And I think even looking around in my own community in the village where I grew up and stuff like that, like a lot of those older folks that I knew are gone too. So I'm searching throughout the islands for anybody over 65 who is willing to talk about how they grew up, what the village was like, how the island has changed, anything at all that can help to kind of fill in some of the gaps in the history that we have.
Have you read To Shoot Hardly, which kind of sounds like that, what you're doing? That
Yes, yes, I have.
yeah. It's that
Mhm.
kind of in someone telling their own story, you're learning the story of the community
Mhm.
and the wider island. Um, and tell me about more about the Artist Talk series. I know you say it's a side project, but obviously it's one that I'm very interested in as an artist myself. So it's like this is so cool that you guys are doing this. And how has that come together? What's the response been like, etc.?
So it's called Open Studio, and the goal of it really was to create a platform that artists can come and talk about their work and share how they've built their career or how they've been working, especially in Antigua, because it's not a job or it's not very common for a lot of people to solely focus on doing art, even if they're doing it on the side, you know.
Say what you mean. The
But
people
it's
don't take it
also
seriously.
yeah, and
I'm seeing it as like it's a hobby. It's a thing. It's not a real,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah. And because the people don't take it seriously, they also don't see it as a viable option, you know? And I think one of the issues that creates is that when people don't see what they can do, it never crosses their mind to be able to do it, you know? So I wanted to be able to give them a platform that writers, musicians, painters, like that they can talk and say, this is what my work is about. This is how I'm making a career. This is how I make money. This is how I'm living. And then giving the public a chance to ask them all those things that they're curious about. Because that's even when I tell people, yes, I'm an artist and this is what I do, there's like they always ask me like, and how do you
So what
make
do you
money
do?
from that?
So what do you
Most
do?
And most of the times I can't answer that question because
Yeah,
I
for
don't
real.
always know.
Yeah.
I don't
I
always
remember
know.
telling
But
someone, I remember telling someone once, this is after I left the 9 to 5, and they were like, so what are you doing now? And I've been through that so many times. I'm a writer, I'm
Mhm.
freelance, I'm an artist, and I just said I'm unemployed. And
Mhm.
that was a satisfactory answer for them. I was like, okay, we're good with that. We understand that. This artist thing, we don't do. So,
Mhm.
I think,
Mhm.
to the point, I think there's a huge amount of talent in Antigua and
Yep.
not as much appreciation for that talent in terms of even some of the things that you're talking about, being able to fund projects. I know, for instance, that the people who do pottery here, some of them would have liked to have had funding to document what they do and so on,
Mhm.
but it's not seen as something that you invested. I mean, I suspect that your country is going to have some issues with that for the next 4 years or so.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
funding of PBS and all these things, and just
Yep.
different funding programs for the arts. But the idea that arts is something worthy of investment that will pay off in the long run is
Mhm.
something that I feel certainly here in the Caribbean needs. We have a long way to go with that. So it's kind of
Mhm.
important work that you're doing, I think. I certainly enjoyed the opportunity to share work in progress. And when I look at the artists that you've had, I hope to come out to more of the sessions. And if you've had Guava, I don't think a lot of Antiguans
Mhm.
have had the opportunity to hear Guava break down what he does,
Mhm.
and he is successful, very successful outside of Antigua
Mhm.
and putting his roots in Antigua as well. But it's like, how many people know, understand his aesthetic or what he does? So to me, it's important to have that kind of
Yeah.
communication. Um, and
Mhm.
you did a session as well, talking about your work. I think you led off everything.
I did.
How did that go?
Um, I think it went well. I also, so I was able to talk about my graduate school thesis show. And I started there and then I branched off into um how all of the different things that inspire my work and where I'm looking artists that I'm interested in, and then also how it came back to um the Antiguan pottery and the current research I'm doing right now. Um, I was able to show some of the things that I've found so far, and even some of the information that I'm not just getting from the potters in Seaview Farm, but also um, stories and anecdotes from people who have interviewed so far who have been able to tell me how they used to use the pots, and it's not just the coal pots, but like how their basin in the bathroom used to be a clay pot as well that was like inside of a wooden frame, and how one person who grew up in St. John's had a water cooler that was like outside of the house. You can reach out to the window and get water, but it was made of clay. And there's all of these different pots and forms that we don't make anymore because, well, we don't need them anymore. But they like when the potters stop making them and the people stop needing them, then they become lost to history. So I'm trying my best to pull up any information I can have from anybody to really make a record of all of those things.
Basically, they were the utensils before time. They were the wares that
Yeah,
they received. And they become, you say that they've become lost to history, but some of them have also just become art, decorative. People buy them
yeah.
for interior design and that sort of thing. So
Which I
you
think
feel
is
like,
where we need to go.
go ahead.
Yeah, I said I think that's the direction that we need to go, and I think we need to shift our sense of what the pottery making that's still going on is, because it has always been an art form, and I think if we can start um seeing it as something that is more decorative, that is tied to our culture, that we want to have around us, even if we're not using them every day, is is how we're going to keep the tradition alive. And I think continuous presence and showing up and asking them and showing them that you really are interested and you really want to know what their story is and how this one thing is made, and being willing to listen to the answer that they have and being ready to ask the next question is but also being respectful of of their time and just all of that is what helps to have them open up, even if it's for some of them it's slower than others. Some of them really want to talk, and all they were waiting for is somebody to ask them.
Mhm.
I'm working with Alicia Humphreys, who is a reporter and writer and poet herself. So she has been helping me with the interview process, which she is very good at. So I have learned throughout my life that I it's best to let people who are good at the things that they do what they do. So she will ask the people the questions, and we both go into the interview together, and we're kind of like bounce off each other and try to help if somebody's stuck, like we try to help them. But it's been good to have somebody who has been here and has like a lot of connections, or like knows who this is the person that you talk to about this, or this person will know how to reach that person. And so it's been very helpful to be able to work with somebody here to, reach places that I don't really have a lot of access to at the moment.
Okay, so what is the state of the work? How much have you accomplished of what you set out to do, and how much more do you have to do, or you don't think of it like that?
Um, I always feel that I still have more work to do. Honestly, that like it's a never-ending project. This is something that I can do for the next 10 years and still not have enough. Right now, my goal was to try and get 30 interviews from different parts of the island. I'm trying to get as many villages as I can, um, which has been a bit hard to to find people. So I am like I would like to get stuff from all over, but I'm also willing to take an interview from anywhere I can get it. Um in
I see
terms of
you've been putting some notices in the paper inviting people to reach out.
yes, yes, I have and also online, and a lot of it has been word of mouth. If anybody like, is there a lot of people who is like, oh, their mother is retired or their grandmother is home every Tuesday or something, like it's been kind of stuff like that. But I'm still looking for whoever can and is willing to talk to me. I take an audio recording, I do a video recording, and I also do a portrait of them.
Okay.
And so I know a lot of the times everybody doesn't want to do all of that. And so I give them a choice, like which are you most comfortable with? We can just do audio, or I can do the video if you want to. I like to call them in advance and set up a time because they like to look nice and make sure they're presentable. So all of that is depending, but like everything is not a must, like if you're more comfortable with just doing it this way, we're willing to compromise because we need you to be like where you're most comfortable, so you're willing to talk.
How many more of the
Mhm.
artists, how many more of the open talks do you hope to do?
So they are going to go down until July. So our next one is May 20th, and that's going to be Argent Javon, the fashion
Okay, fashion
designer.
designer.
And
Okay.
then yes, from House of Argent. And coming up we have
I
Heather
see.
Dora, we have Emil Hill, we have
Okay.
Michael Hunt,
Okay.
and
Okay.
yes, yes, so there's quite a few
Yeah.
still coming up. There's five more left until the end of the series, and then hopefully we'll be able to put on another set of talks next year.
Okay, so one last thing. Tell me something you've
Mm.
learned since being here, since being back. Let me put it that way, because you are from here. But tell me something
Wow.
you've learned.
Well, specifically with pottery, I think there's always something new to learn. Just like sitting down and just watching Hyacinth Hillhouse work is like I learn something new every time I go and sit down with her.
Tell me about that. This is
The
fascinating to me, and I can teach her about. So tell me about it.
Well, I give her a call, ask her when I can come, and I come by, and we sit and talk for an hour, hour and a half, and most of the time she's working. She always has some kind of commission or something going on. So, whether it's like watching her process the clay, the speed of her hands, the way how she moved, like it's just like a reflex, like she's been doing this her whole life. It's like she's so fast, but she's also very there's so much detail even in the way that she moves her fingers, how she's feeling for stones and finishing up the work and turning and like every like I can see how much is passed down, like all of the information and knowledge that she has, but there's also so much of her that's in the work by the way that she moves, the way that she pulls and tugs at the clay. All of it is very, and that's the thing about pottery is that you can always tell how the hand affects the work. Like the person who is making it is like they always leave a part of themselves um in the work, and you can see that with how she makes. And I'm very grateful that she's willing to let me come and even just sit and watch, um, which has been a
So,
very
so,
enlightening experience.
so to my
Mhm.
question, how will that affect your work, do you think? What you've observed?
Well, because I've been in the States for the last 9 years and well, the last 10 years, and I've been doing pottery for about eight and a half of those years. Because I didn't find out about Antigua and pottery until after I went there, a lot of the ways that I have been working up until now has been figuring out how to mimic the pictures and the images that
Mhm.
I've seen from what's happening here. And so I'm as I've been here, I've been learning how things are actually made, like what the materials actually are, how like how the pots are made. Like it's not I work with coils and that's my go-to. That's like what I'm most comfortable with, how I can build almost anything with coils in like no time. And I always thought that the work that was made here and also the work that is like the research, the histor or not really the historical like an archaeological research that has come out of like the museum and stuff. It also says that they believe that the work that was made earlier was made with coils, but the way how they work in CV farm is not that way. Like it's a whole different way. It's an Antiguan way. And it's something that's like where it's not quite a full coil, but it's the technique of making is different. It's something that sometimes I found myself doing something similar in the studio as I'm in it and I'm just trying to get something done. But I'm coming here now and realizing that this is the way that it's made here. And there's a very specific way to do it to make sure that things will get through the whole process, that like, it will survive the firing, and just learning the small things. And then also how the clay in Seaview Farm is so different. It's such a strong clay. Like it's a combination of the technique that is used, the clay that is specific to the area, and the way that they fire that gives us the pottery that we have that you won't be able to replicate exactly anywhere else. So it's a very special thing.
So one, I know I said I was the last thing, a quick one. The
Mhm,
clay that we use, so the clay that's specific to the area, the technique and the firing. How important is it that we protect
mhm.
all of that, including the clay deposits, including the the technique and all of that? How important and why is it important? If you could give me like in a quick sentence, how why is it important that we protect that?
I think it's it's important because it's a record. It is one of the only records that we have still alive today in Antigua that directly connects us to West Africa, to very specific places in West Africa. Like this one craft, this one practice can um link us directly to people who are still working the exact same way. So it's not only something that connects us beyond the slave trade, but it is also something that gives us the story that we started as people who were forced to be here. You know, like it is it's been happening since they got here. And then it's it not only um gave them a way to like to make money and provide for themselves, but like it gives them a form of independence, like based on Natasha Lightfoot's book Troubling
Troubling freedom.
Freedom and like some of the research that she's done, like you can see how it was able to give women this economic freedom that was like unprecedented anywhere else, you know, like except for in the communities where that was possible. And
Yeah,
so it's not just a history of the craft, but it's a history of the people that that lived through that time. And I think to keep doing it now, even if it changes in a different changes with the time and we incorporate new things and the people who are doing it changes, I think it still connects you to all of that.
beautiful,
So,
beautiful,
and that's how we know who we are, you know? So that's why it's
beautiful.
important.
Community, identity, and all the things. Thank you so much, Chelsea. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And
Thank
tell my aunt
you.
hi when you see her.